Hello and welcome to the Dance Yourself Brave show, where we get real about the struggles dancers face, from confidence battles to self-doubt, and how dance has the power to make us braver, stronger, and more unstoppable in every area of life. I'm your host, Mariana Santos, founder of Brazili Fitness, and whether you're a seasoned dancer, a dance instructor, dance lover, or someone who's always wanted to dance but feels a little intimidated to start, this show is for you. Expect honest conversations, inspiring stories, and simple ways to bring more dance into your life, whether that's in the studio, on stage, or right in your living room. And if you're a dance instructor, we've got you covered with tips on how to grow your dance business, attract more students, and create a bigger impact through your passion for movement. So if you're ready to step out of your comfort zone, own your movement, and dance yourself brave, let's do this. Hello and welcome to the Dance Yourself Brave show. I'm your host, Mariana Santos, and I'm the founder of Brazili Fitness. And today I'm so excited because I have Ian Howe here with me. Ian Howe is a studio owner, teacher, choreographer based out of Seattle. He worked on Holland America Line as a dancer for 7.5 years, traveling the world and dancing. You know, that's a dream, right? Now Ian travels both nationally and internationally to guest teach and choreograph. He runs a small photography business and so many other things. And here to tell us about all those other things is Ian. Welcome to the show, Ian. Thanks for coming on.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here and just, kind of talk about whatever we get into. But yeah, no, it's like you said, I studio owner, teacher, choreographer based out of Seattle, Washington. So, it rains a lot, but it's gorgeous here. I work for competitions, so I'm a judge, I'm a director, I'm an MC. I worked on Holland America right out of high school, so that was a very, very amazing, humbling experience for 19-year-old to get to do. So like you said, it is the dream. Got paid to go dance and explore the world, so can't knock that in any way, shape, or form. You mentioned that I travel, so like I had the pleasure of going to Australia last year to go teach and choreograph. Luckily, I get to go back this year. I just bought a ticket to London to go teach, so I'm very excited for that. But then I go all over the US. So, if I'm not home teaching at a studio, I'm somewhere on some plane.
Well,
Gosh, what
you
else?
are busy. We're so grateful that you could find time in your
Yeah,
schedule to chat with us today, because it seems
for
like you're
sure.
always somewhere cool, right?
Yes, that is the travel bug in me. It's definitely, I love getting to meet new people. I love getting to see new studios, see new places, talk to teachers, talk to dance studio owners. So, I'm very, in everything that I do, I'm very lucky and I'm very humbled that I get to do that as my career. So,
Well, how about we rewind a little bit, right? Because maybe we have some people listening and be like, wow, he's living the dream life. I would love to get there, but it seems like out of reach, right? So how about we rewind a little bit and tell us how you started with dance?
Sesame Street, literally Sesame
Okay.
Street. So
I was
uh,
not expecting that. That's
I know most people are like, what? So Savion Glover, I don't know if you know who that is, or some of your listeners might not know who he is. But amazing, amazing tap dancer. He was a protege of Gregory Hines, which if you don't know who that is, go look him up. He did some amazing stuff, worked with Baryshnikov and White Knights, and just overall amazing dancer. But Savion Glover was on Sesame Street. He was maybe 9 or 10 at the time, and he was tap dancing, and I was an outspoken little 5-year-old and told my mother I could do that, and she looked at me and was like, really? He's like, yep. So she put me in dance class, and that's honestly kind of the start of everything.
wow.
She put me in dance class, and my mom didn't know if I was actually dancing the first couple years because she had to stay out in the car while I was in class.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but it just led to doing everything else. And then I was a competitive dancer. I started teaching when I was 16 at the studio that I grew up at. So again, very, very lucky, very blessed, very humbled that I had a family that supported what I wanted to do. And then also just a great dance community that I was around to help with that and making basically, I guess, my dream kind of come true.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. And I love how your mom supported you and, how, even at a young age, like you were able to stand up for yourself and be like, this is what I want, right? Like that's
Yeah.
incredible.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I'm sure though that it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. I'm sure that there were some struggles, right? So let's talk about that because I think that my main goal with this podcast is to showcase like real life stories. Like sometimes we see these dancers, these dance teachers, studio owners, choreographers, and we think like, oh, well, it was natural for them or they got lucky or this and that, right? And we kind of discredit their work, right? And like everything that happens behind the scenes. So that's what I want to show that, everyone can benefit from dance, but you have to allow yourself to be a beginner and step outside of your comfort zone and grow and, fall down and get back up again, right? So let's talk about the maybe not so easy moments in your journey.
I mean, there were great moments that like obviously outshine the harder moments. I think that's the first thing I would say is that like there really are truly good moments in this industry, in this line of work, in this career. But I think the cliche saying is that you're going to go audition 100 times. You're going to get told no 99 times and you're going to get that one yes.
Yeah.
That's true. And it doesn't matter how you parse that out, what context you try to put it in. It's going to happen. You're going to get told no. You're going to get told that you're not the right hair color, not the right height, not the right size, not what they're looking for in that moment, even though they might cast that carbon copy of you, 2 weeks later.
Mm-hmm.
I know for me growing up, like again, I had a very supportive family, so it was never from a family aspect of it, but it was just the stigma of, being a guy that danced.
Mm-hmm.
That was honestly like one of the biggest things growing up from, probably that elementary school age up to middle school, because, middle school is always great. No one's ever been there. But, just the stigma that, I'm doing a girl's thing. Oh, you're gay for doing this, that, and the other. And it's just like, no, but, at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, how do you trying to verbalize what it is that you do whilst dealing with all of the lovely emotions and hormones and puberty that come along with that. It's just a situation that happens. I think nowadays kids have better advocacy for that. I think it's more accepted for, males especially to be dancing at that young age and it to actually be something that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely know for me growing up when, I was that age, it was much harder. It was much more stigmatized. It was much more looked down upon. And there was a lot of defending, like, again, like defending my sexuality at 10. Like, that's
Mm-hmm.
not something a
Which you should
10-year-old,
not
I
be
feel like,
doing. Yeah.
exactly, and even now it's, I'm turning 40 this year. So, I mean, that's 30 years ago, but, even now it's still defending certain aspects of my personality and everything where I'm like, why am I defending this to you if you're not actually just going to come up and talk to me?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that was definitely, I think, during a younger age was just being in the public school system, not having that support from the majority of kids that I was around, definitely shaped me and definitely shaped my resolve for a lot of things. I think I gained that, well, okay, this is going to be a journey that I have to do on my own, and certain people are going to support it and others won't. But once I started 7th grade is when I started homeschooling full time. So I actually was able to take myself out of the public school system and just
Oh, okay.
focus in on dance, still get my schooling. Like I still have a high school diploma and, graduated with all of that, but I was able to be at the studio 30,
Mm-hmm.
40 hours a week. I was able to travel and, not worry about getting my homework done or
Mm-hmm.
whatever thing. So I think having that option, having, again, parents that were supportive of that definitely shape helps shape not just my dance experience, but just my experience in general with that. Um, I was very lucky that, I had that avenue to go down
Yeah.
and my parents were okay with that. Um, yeah, I mean, I can't think of like really, really super specific situations because at this point it's kind of like, I think I've just like that part of my life. I've kind of like,
Yeah.
it happened, something happened. But the general overall feeling of like what I just said is it's definitely, it was just dealing with the stigma, which I think unfortunately there's always going to be somewhat of a stigma for male dancers. I think there's always going to be that pocket of people that view it as one way, and until they're educated or you just block them out, they're not
You
going to
know,
understand.
what's really interesting is that I'm from Canada, so it's a similar stigma here, I would say. But I met my husband taking his dance class in Brazil, and
Okay.
it's what's really interesting is in Brazil, like for dance fitness classes, it's mostly men who are teaching the classes. So it's very different, right? Like based on just the culture, right? Like it's like the women prefer to go see a guy dance the class. And yes, I'm sure there is also like, the whole thing with the stigma and, prejudice and all that stuff, but I'd say it's way less compared to here in North America. So like my husband never like felt that like when he was growing up and when he started teaching. So it's really interesting how, and it's really good to see that, it's like it's a you problem. It's not a me problem, right? When these people start to like throw these like preconceived notions at you, like you start to realize, you know what? Like you deal with that. Like I don't need this in my life and just throw it out.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And it's how you frame it. It's how
Mhm.
people frame it. It's how society frames it. And I mean, that was part, excuse me, um, traveling on cruise ships. That was, 19 years old. I didn't know my head from my butt half the time. I was just like, oh, I've got a job. I'm getting paid for it. I get to go travel and dance. Great. Let's go.
Yeah.
But getting to travel for 7.5 years and doing world cruises and, spending 70 days going around South America and getting to go to Brazil and getting to go to, Europe and places like that, and just to see culturally how dance is celebrated in such a different way than it is here. And it's not to say that people don't here celebrate dance. Like, obviously, I wouldn't have a job if people didn't celebrate dance. The industry that we have here would be much different. But I think it's just like it's how the culture frames it. Like, I think in Brazil, for example, like it's just about having a good time. In the grand scheme
Exactly.
of things, it's about you go to the beach, you go to a party, you get food, you everything, and everybody's just there for the music. And that music's gonna make them move. And then, whereas here it's, if you want a job in the industry, you gotta be a competition dancer. You have to go take with these choreographers. You have to go, this, that, and the other. When really that isn't necessarily what it should be about.
Yeah.
In at least in its essence, which again is a totally different conversation unto itself. But yeah, I think how a lot of things are framed is getting better, but I don't think it's anywhere near what it could be and what it should be.
When I moved to Brazil the first time, I was 14. My dad had just gotten a job in Sao Paulo, Brazil. So, as a 14-year-old, you can imagine I wasn't, thrilled about having to move and learn a new language, leave behind my friends and things like that. But one of the first things I noticed was, how sometimes you watch a movie and then there's a random scene where all the full cast comes up and they all know the choreography and you think like, well, that doesn't happen in real life. Well, in Brazil, that's what happens. Like there are certain songs where, everyone gets up and they all know the little dance. And even if they're a little bit off, they don't care. They're just in there for the joy of it, And that to me was really interesting and just so enlightening to see that how like the power of music and dance and how it brings people together, right? To just live in the moment, forget about, maybe you've had a busy week at work or you had a lot of stress going on in your life, but this is a moment where you can just forget about all of that and just enjoy life, right? And
Yeah.
I think that
Bar
is magic about dance.
it is, yeah. No, and I wish more people just had that thought process with it before adding
Mhm.
all the other, you know, stuff onto it. But yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, what is one thing that you wish your students knew about you? Something that maybe they would be surprised about.
Um, I think a lot of them would be surprised that, oh my gosh, I don't know. If I wasn't a dancer, I'd probably be a scientist.
Oh, okay.
I could have graduated high school when I was 13. I
Okay.
actually tested out of a lot of things. Eh, I was one of those smarty pants kids that
Okay.
literally I could read a book or two and be like, oh yeah, this is how we're gonna do it. Um,
Oh,
so yeah, science, theoretical physics, that type of stuff. If I'm
all
not
those
dancing,
easy things, right? Super
exactly those
easy.
easy things. Yeah. But yeah, no, it was that would probably be usually if I mention that, like people are like, wait, really? You count to eight and you do this. That's not
Yeah.
where I thought you would be. But I was very much like a science kid, math kid, growing up. So that
Wow.
probably be the surprising thing for most people.
Yeah. And I love how, like, even though you had other gifts and talents, like you still were really drawn to dance, right? And it shows that really it is a very strong fire within you, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I started dancing when I was 5. By 10 years old, I knew that I wanted to be a teacher. And I started teaching when I was 16. So it's always just kind of been, and I think this is why I do so many things. It's always just trying to almost one up myself and like, okay, well, I've done this. Could I do this over here? That's part of the reason, like traveling internationally. I did it as a dancer on a cruise ship, which was great because I was getting paid for it. Didn't have to worry about whatever. And things are a little more expensive now when you have to pay for everything. Um,
Hmm.
but I'm very lucky that I get to travel around the States and judge and direct and teach and choreograph. But then I was like, all right, well, I've got a passport just sitting there. Could I do this in a foreign country? So that was why I'm going back to Australia now, and it's becoming a yearly thing. I'm hoping that, Europe, London becomes a thing.
Brazil.
Brazil, no, honestly, like Brazil's been on my list. I loved it there. Like when I was on cruise ships, we would spend like 2 or 3 days there. We would be, oh my gosh, where would we go? Like Buenos Aires and Rio, and I just remember Brazil's gorgeous unto itself.
Mhm.
But I just remember we were we had been out all day at like this arts market or something, and it was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we were hungry. We hadn't eaten anything, so we went up to this little restaurant, and he was closing down. He was I don't know. He's just like, okay, we're done, and he's like, go sit. He's like, just go sit. And
Mhm.
he literally, it was one of the best lunches I've ever had because he just was
Wow.
like, I don't know what I'm gonna make you, but I have all this food that's left over. So he just made us like salads and all of this stuff. And then he was like, do you want some sangria? And we're like, sure, thinking it'll be like a leftover
Why
glass or
not?
two. No,
Yeah.
he went and got a whole pitcher. He had fresh fruit that he was
Wow.
cutting in. He had a whole bottle of wine, and we're sitting there going like, oh, we have to rehearse in an hour, but okay, it'll be a fun rehearsal. Um, but that's like, I think that's just indicative of that area too, is,
Yeah.
it's, that's like one of my best memories. It's just going to this random restaurant, just him,
Mhm.
and he was like, no, I'll stay open an extra half hour, 45 minutes, here's the price. And we're like, great, just let us know. Sorry, that was a
Awesome.
tangent, but yeah, I think like Brazil in general, like that whole area, like it's just so indicative of the culture and the
Mhm.
people and the, it's the vibe of the whole place.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And what do you think? Okay, so I know that you've been teaching dance for a while. So one of the things I love the most about teaching dance is like, of course, we all have our stories about how dance changed our lives, right? But it's so powerful when we can see that impact in our students' lives, right? So I'm sure you have a million stories of, different student success stories, but maybe let's focus on one maybe that really stands out, or maybe a recent one of a student that has taken classes with you and just something that really stands out in their journey with dance through your classes.
For me, teaching isn't just about teaching a kid how to kickball change. It's
Mm-hmm.
about like, I want to create better humans, not just better dancers. Dancers, in the grand scheme of thing, are a dime a dozen.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry if anybody listens to that and they're like, don't agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of true.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but how we create those dancers and the morals and the ethics and the tools that we get them, that is what differentiates them. That is what I think makes them more employable, more workable, and will have a longer lasting career in
Mm-hmm.
this industry. Um, so with that thought, um, created a couple numbers for this studio, and I happened to be home a random weekend a few weeks ago, and they had their like showcase. So, I was just like, oh, hey, I'm gonna show up. Um, and, they brought all the choreographers on stage and everything. And I haven't seen some of these dancers for probably a few months. And they all came running when they saw me, like, backstage. But then one of the girls, who was in my class all last year, and I was kind of just that like random person that we just clicked as far as like, she tell me about what happened at school and how she was beefing with this person and blah, blah, whatever, like just all of that. Um, he came running over to one of the owners because they were handing out flowers. And he specifically went up to that owner and was like, hey, I know I'm supposed to give my flowers to this person, but I really want to give them to Mr. Ian. And,
Oh.
um, he did it, big hug, he was crying at whatever. And then one of the studio owners came up to me afterwards, and she was just like, it was so surprising in a good way because, you had only taught these kids for a year, but to have one of our seniors that has been dancing with us forever specifically be like, hey, I really would love to like have this moment with you and,
Mm-hmm.
give them the flowers. It was just like, it was just refreshing. It was
Yeah.
nice to see that you connected with her specifically, and that you have that rapport with kids. Um, so to me, that's almost a bigger moment than, I have kids that are very successful. They've gone on to go teach. They've gone on to, college to dance. They've gone on to cruise ships. They've gone on to, X, Y, and Z. Um, but for me, it means more when they have that moment of like, you weren't just teaching me how to kickball change. You were actually helping me figure out things in life. You were giving me tools for that. Um, and having kids come back that went off to college and now are back and saying like, no, we stuck with dance because of you, because of this one interaction or because of your class. So, I mean, that's just because that would just happen a few weeks ago. I think
Mm-hmm.
that is why that one sticks in my mind, but just that means more to me, career wise, teacher wise, to have those interactions and to know that we really are making a difference and not just, again, teaching kids how to kickball change, which is equally great. Sometimes that's what you do.
Yeah.
Um, but like for me personally, that I'm going to have a lasting impression on that child, on that dancer, on that adult,
Mm-hmm.
um, is really insane and really kind of scary and but cool at the same time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I love like what you said about how, one thing that you say to them that sticks out, because sometimes I feel like as teachers, we feel kind of like broken records sometimes, right? We have to say the same thing over and over again. Or even like when we post content on social media, I'm like, here I go, talking about the same topic again. Right?
Yep.
But it's it's really like easy to forget how powerful that is. And because it's so common in our lives and we think that it's, that's obvious, everyone knows that, right? But for people
Mhm.
who are learning to dance, students or anyone who's just wants to try a new dance class, right? It's not obvious to them. So sometimes like one thing you can say to them really can change the course of their life, right? So I think that
Yeah.
that's so powerful to remember. There's always someone listening, and like we're always inspiring someone in some way, shape, or form, right? I love that. So you would say like that's the impact you want to make in the world, right? Like just creating better humans, right? Through dance.
That's like when I took over. So I didn't start the studios that I own. I bought them already established because God forbid nope, just nope. That is not a journey I want to go down.
Mhm.
Um, so, it was a lot of, I mean, God, 6 years later, there's still a lot of transition. There's still uh, holdovers from the previous owner where they stuck with it, but they still think it should be this way as opposed to that way. But one of the biggest things that I told people was just like, your child is coming here to dance. That is obviously what you were paying for. You're paying for dance lessons,
Mhm.
but anybody can teach them dance lessons.
Mhm.
Very few people can actually teach them, okay, you have 6 classes, you have homework. What are your time management skills going to be?
Mhm.
Did you put all your stuff in your dance bag? Did you bring yourself food? Did you bring yourself water? Oh, hey, you're on competition team. Okay, here's all your dances. Do you know your numbers? Do you know all this?
Mhm.
And calling them out. Like if they're, eh, like obviously if they're like 10, 11, 12 and they can't drive themselves, like they're
Yeah.
late to class, it's going to
Mhm.
be the parent's fault
Yeah.
9 times out of 10.
Mhm.
But at the same time, like, if they forget their dance bag or if they have their dance bag and they don't have their shoes in it and they're going after mom and dad, well, why didn't you remind me or why did you put it? No, no, no.
Mhm.
You're the one that's coming to class. You're the one that needs to remember to set your stuff out the night before.
Mhm.
Um, and yes, every once in a while it is the parents and, there's only so much you can do with that.
Mhm.
But, I think it, I think it's our job to a certain extent that we're teaching the dancers, again, not just how to kick ball change, but like
Mhm.
life skills, especially
Mhm.
if they're here multiple hours a week. Like, yeah, if you don't have your hair up and you can't remember that, the ballet class you take every single week, then
Mhm.
yeah, you're going to have to figure that out. And there are consequences to that.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, I think, and again, and not that on the flip side of that, not all teachers are good at that. Some
Mhm.
teachers are just good at teaching dance, which is also
Mhm.
equally fine. Like,
Mhm.
I have teachers that teach for me 3 hours a week and they come in, they do their job, they have a good report, they go home.
Mhm.
Peace. I have
Yeah.
teachers that teach for me 25 hours a week and they are invested. They are, there for everything. So again, that's a whole other tangent, but um, I think it's just, figuring out what your lane is and
Yeah.
working within that. But like you said, regardless of where we feel, there's always someone listening, there's always someone watching. Um, so you have that responsibility regardless.
Yeah. And I would say, like, I don't know if you noticed this, but I think with younger generations, with technology just advancing so rapidly, they're used to just things being so quick and easy, right? Like if you want food, oh, just like open up Uber Eats and have it delivered to your house within like 20 minutes, right? And that instant gratification is really becoming a problem, right? Because they're starting to think that
Yeah.
everything should be easy. And real life is not easy. Real life requires grit and courage and, organization, being responsible, owning up to your mistakes and learning from them, right? And these are all
Yeah.
things that I think dance can teach you.
Oh,
And
for
it's
sure.
amazing, like, to see how powerful dance can be just beyond, like you said, like the kickball change, right?
Yeah.
It's so much more than that.
Yeah, and it's funny that like you mentioned that because this is a conversation that I've been having with again studio owners, teachers, myself. It's like when I grew up, it was more tough love. It was more
Mhm.
like no, 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 get your ish together and figure it out.
Mhm.
Essentially, and again, I had very loving teachers, but the way
Yeah.
that things were presented, the way that things were disciplined essentially wasn't as lovey-dovey as it is now,
Mhm.
which I think to a certain degree, I love the fact that mental health and the way that we perceive things and the way that we um, street situations, I think is better now. I think the advocacy is better for it. I try to get kids to advocate for themselves. Like, no, if you twisted your ankle and it hurts, let me know. I'm not going to be mad at you. I will get mad at you if it's 4 weeks down the road and you are continuing to using that as, an excuse, but that's our job to teach them. Like, no, if you twisted your ankle, you go put ice on it and you sit there and listen. If it's really hurting you, we call your parents. We're not going to be mad at you.
Yeah.
But the bigger question that I've been wrestling with the past few years, and you mentioned it, is like, there is a grit to this industry. You have to have a thick skin. And how do we as teachers, again, all for mental health, all for the advocacy, all for that entire thing. But where's the line drawn to where we're like, no, tell us when you're not feeling good. But hey, sometimes you might have to come in when you're sick. Sometimes you might have to like push through a little bit of stuff. And where does that tough love come in? And how do we build dancers with that grit?
And how do we get their parents on board, right? Because that's a whole other tangent we could go on.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and again, and that's hard because sometimes you have the parents that grew up that are of that mindset. So it's almost like they want us to parent their kids, but then but then you have the others that and my gosh, sorry, this tangent. We can move on to whatever else. But like coming out of COVID, especially, like we're seeing a lot of COVID messed up a lot of things. COVID, there's a lot of separation anxiety, not just with the kids anymore, but with the parents now too. So it's like it's a new generation, it's a new thing. So it's just it's just funny that you bring that up, because that was literally just a conversation that I was having not too long ago. It's like, where is that line in our industry now where we build kids at a younger age, if they do want to become professional, being like, no, you do have services that if you're feeling depressed or whatever, go take advantage of these. If you're having an off day, tell me you're having an off day. Doesn't mean I'm not going to be less hard on you, but I can find different ways to be a little more understanding and empathetic. But then, yeah, there's going to be some days you walk through the door, you're just going to have to put on a happy face and grin and bear it and not bring it out on others, and understand that if you want to go down this way, you're going to have to do that a lot.
Yeah, and even if you don't want to go down the professional dancer route, like any other profession you do choose down the line, you will have those days where you don't feel like it, or you're sick, or you're in a bad mood, or, like someone, like your cat died or something, right? Like, and life will go on. And how do you like deal with that, right? And I think that if we can teach kids at a younger age, then they become more functional, happier adults. And I think a lot of the mental health issues that are happening are because people haven't learned to deal with those emotions, because they just think, well, life is only hard for me, not like to simplify it. But we have this habit as human beings to just think like, okay, why is my life so hard? And, like, whereas like, okay, what is this teaching me? What am I supposed to learn from this situation, right? And not to say that that's easy, but how can we find a support system to get through those hard times and learn and grow? And I think that in a dance school and a dance studio with your dance teachers, that's a great way to set you up for success, no matter what area you want, like whatever field you want down the road.
100.
So what do you think the world needs more of nowadays in general? Not just in the dance world, but the world in general. Because let's just be honest, like the world's been a scary place lately.
Empathy.
Was that?
Empathy and compassion, I think, is the biggest stuff. I'll try to put this in the most general terms. I have a very diverse school that I have as far as what we're about. We are very liberal. We are very all-inclusive. Anybody can dance. Come dance with us. And I obviously am very, I'm not a Caucasian female studio owner. I am an adopted 40-year-old male from Asia that owns a studio. So right there, it's a very different persona. It's very surprising to sometimes when I'm just hanging around answering questions and they're like, who are you? I'm like, oh, I'm the owner. They're like, oh, it's nice to meet you. Just whatever. But we live in a very conservative leaning county.
Okay.
So it's a very interesting dynamic sometimes. There are people within the studio that we have we go every which direction, I guess is the best way to say it. But the one thing that I do appreciate about everybody at the studio, both staff and client wise, is that regardless of which way they go and their opinions about things, 99.9% of them, once they walk in the door, it's about their kid dancing. It's about being in that space and talking to everybody. Well, not always talking to everybody, but it's usually not due to political reasons. It's just, some people don't get along. But, and I think that is a small little pocket of relief, which is nice. But yeah, I would say that it's empathy and compassion. That is, I think, what the world needs more of now. I think we've needed more of that for a while. I think, unfortunately, it's just come to the forefront because of everything else that is going on in the bigger picture of everything. And it's hard. It's hard not to let outside influences influence what we're trying to teach in the studio or outside of the studio even. Like, I go guest teach places, and being aware and being sensitive enough to read the room, essentially. But then also, I think, understanding that, like, I'm not about that. So if you want to make that your issue, or if you want to make certain things that I don't prescribe to part of the conversation, that's great. But then I may not be the mix for you, because once I'm in the classroom, I'm there to teach your kids dance. I'm there to laugh and have a good time and watch them do stupid things and me make stupid voices and them hopefully come away smiling because they just had a good class. Yeah, that, and I think just being able to have conversations. And I mean, even outside of the political spectrum, like, people just being able to talk to each other is something that I feel like
Respect differences, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also just the difference. And again, it's ironic because I know that we're connecting over Riverside, Zoom, whatever, like, we're connecting digitally. But, there are so many people that I see nowadays that, will FaceTime people, but then not look at the FaceTime. They'll just prop the phone up and talk to them while they're doing something else. I'm like,
oh,
that defeats the purpose, I feel like.
Yeah.
Why don't you just go over to that person's house or be like, hey, let's go get lunch. Hey, let's go to this concert. Let's, something like that. So I think just genuinely, I guess, not just conversation, but just human interaction. Like, I went out with I had some friends who did photography for me for the studio, and during COVID, they moved down to California. And they just moved back like a year ago. And they didn't make a big deal out of it. They were just like, oh, we're going to come back up here, blah, blah, blah. And I finally went to, go have drinks and dinner with one of them. And at one point, my friend, he texted me, he's like, hey, my wife's not feeling good, but, I'm still down for drinks. And we ultimately ended up going, but we laughed about it because I was like, yeah, when you texted me that, there was definitely a long thought process of like, well, we could just, postpone this for another month or two when you both are ready. And he laughed too, because he was like, yeah, I thought about that too. But then I was just like, I just need to get out of the house and, like, actually see people. I was like, it was the same way as much as.
I think COVID has, like, it just, like, activated our hermit mode, and it's hard to, like, get out of that, right? And it's detrimental for sure.
And I mean, I think one of the few positives that came out of COVID was that it slowed some people down. Like, it slowed me down, and I mean, that's saying a lot. Like, I still do a ton, but, it made me reevaluate how I was dividing my time, what I was doing with my time. Like, just having the simple fact of being able to, like, I have a day, and I have time to do something. What do I want to do? That was, like, mind-blowing. Uh, so empathy, compassion, genuine human interaction,
Yes.
I think is just, I think we can do more of that. I think we can do a better job of it. I think we can do more of it without an ulterior motive.
I
So
agree. I love that. And last question is, what advice would you give to someone who's just starting to dance, or maybe they're a little bit curious about dance or just still a little bit intimidated? What's just like one piece of advice you would offer them?
do it.
Full on
I mean,
Nike.
it's just full on Nike, just do it. No, I mean, I like, yeah, I mean, the simplest uh, answer to that is just do it. Just try it. You may end up loving it. You may end up hating it, but you can at least say that you did it.
Yeah.
Um, obviously there's the like, I could sit down with people for hours and be like, yeah, you could do this because of this reason. You could try this because of this reason. But in the grand scheme of things, there's a point where you can have all the information in the world, but until you actually pull the trigger and just do it, you're not going to know, or you're going to be wondering, or you're going to find an excuse to look over here because this sounds better, but then, oh, here's a better idea. So just do it. Like, if you have the opportunity, if there's something that you're like, oh, this class sounds really interesting, and I would actually like commit to this for 4 weeks or a day or an hour, go do it. If you have somebody that you can drag along with you, even better, drag them along, go do it. Like, accountability. But in the end, just do it. That's,
Let's do
yeah.
it. I love it. Well, how about you share how people can get in touch with you so that they can maybe take classes with you in the future, or whatever it is you want to share? Go ahead and share.
Yeah. Wow. So, Ian Howe Dancer. So IANHOWEDANCER, all one word. That is pretty much all of my socials. You can find me on Facebook if people still use Facebook. I think
I
they
found
do.
you on Facebook.
Right. But yeah, Facebook, Instagram, it's my website, ianhowdancer.com, ianhowdancer@gmail.com if you want to get in contact with me. But I mean, I run a photography business called Dance Meets the Eye. I have my own dance company, which I really haven't done anything with because doing all these other things, but that's apropos modus. I have my own dance, traveling dance type deal called Influx Dance. So that's www.influx.dance. Um, yeah,
So
so
many
just find
things.
me,
You're just a
Ian,
little busy, huh?
just a little bit. But yeah, no, so that's all of my personal stuff. If you are in the Seattle area and you want to check out my dance studio, it's pacwestdance.com. Pacific West Performing Arts is the full name, but that's a mouthful, so Pac West Dance. Um, we're getting ready to put out our summer schedule. We have everything tap, jazz, ballet, lyrical, contemporary. We just started a dance circus program. So if you wanted to do
Wow.
silks and lyra, we have that. We have Latin dancing. We have hula. We have all these things. So, yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Ian. I loved hearing all about your story. And I feel like we have very similar missions about how dance can shape the human being, right? And just,
Yes.
and I think it was meant to be for us to chat today. And I just love what you're
Yeah.
doing. And yeah, thank you so much for being on the show, and hopefully can come back and chat some more.
Oh my
But
gosh,
I
yes,
really,
anytime. Anytime. And yes, again, thank you for having me. I love to talk, but I love to just get things out there, start conversations. So hopefully that is what this elicits in somebody.
yes. Well, thank you again. And for those of you listening, thank you so much for tuning in to the Dance Yourself Brave show, where we showcase amazing stories like Ian's. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, share, leave a review so that we can reach more people and just spread the dance love across the globe. Thanks, and talk to you next time. Thanks for tuning in to the Dance Yourself Brave show. If If today's episode got you hyped, inspired, or just made you want to bust a move, do me a favor. Subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear today's message. Sharing is caring after all. And hey, don't forget, your courage is already in you. Sometimes you just gotta dance it out to feel it. Catch you next time. Keep shining and keep dancing yourself brave.